All right, Guillermo. So that countdown clock just happened. A lot of people bail. They get really nervous. Are you okay? You want to keep going?
No, I'm okay. We can
You're in.
we
You're
can
in.
keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah. We didn't scare them off. Well, why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you tell my listeners who you are and what your company is and what it does?
Sure. Well, my name is Guillermo Pepe. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 25 years in different industries, mainly in Latin America and Europe. Right now, I'm leading. I founded this company, Mamotest. Um, this is a company that is drastically decreasing the number of women dying of breast cancer,
Mhm.
mainly in developing economies, but we're also working in Spain, which is Europe, right?
That's awesome. So let's get a little bit into the weeds here on like what's the origin of Mamotest? Like what was the inspiration, creation, kind of what's the origin story here as to why we're talking today?
Yes, sure. Well, as I always say, there are two Mammoths. One of
Okay.
them, the first part of the story, is two very separate stories that you will learn about it in the coming minutes. And it's the first Mammoths. It started back in 2013. So this is like 11 years ago. And I started the company because my father, he's a medical doctor specializing on breast imaging diagnosis. These are the doctors that do interpretation of mammograms, right? So when in a conversation with him, he told me how frustrated he was at the time because he was, preparing himself during all his life in order to save women's lives, and women were arriving late for diagnosis. So even if he would, diagnose a breast cancer, it would be already late.
Mm,
And all he was doing at the time, this is just his words, was telling them that, there wasn't much to do because it was already late.
mm,
So
yeah.
it completely caught my attention in a moment of my life where I was looking to start a business, a company that with that very strong purpose, but I didn't know what to do at the time. But when he told me, when he shared with me that story, and looking at him as frustrated as he was, and the possibility of, impacting human lives,
Yeah.
positively impacting, I said, "Wow, I want to jump right into this opportunity. I want to, do a research about it and why women are arriving late for a diagnosis." So we started doing this research. We found out that there were so many barriers that were distancing women from having access to early diagnosis. I mean, to medical doctors like my father doing interpretation of mammograms.
Mhm.
So this is moment one when we started Mamotest the way it was, and with the technology we had at the time, because of course technology in the last 11 years has evolved so much.
I'm sure, yeah.
So yeah, totally. So what we did at that moment was, installing mammography units in underserved locations, and for, people that were living far away from big cities. And we would install those mammography units and connect them through teleradiology. So
Mm,
we would then, articulate our work with governments, insurance companies, NGOs, uh, companies that were interested in women's health, and then, start working on awareness, so women would go for a mammogram yearly once they were 40 years old. We would push for legislation so women would have days off of work in order to visit a gynecologist and have the mammogram. We would, once women would get to the mammography units, those mammograms would upload to our network of teleradiologists, and they would do the interpretation and send the report back in less than 24 hours, which at the moment, 11 years ago, it was so much faster. It was totally disruptive because women would, for them, it would take maybe 6 to 9 months to get a mammogram, the report, and then get to a final diagnosis and start treatment. So that is moment one of Mamotest. And then the second moment, the moment we refounded the company was during the pandemic, because I always say that 2020, the year of the pandemic, it's the equivalent in healthcare to the year 2000 for e-commerce.
Yeah.
It was when everything changed. Nobody really cared about healthcare before 2020. We were like, okay, health is okay, but well, there is not much business there. And
Right.
then
Right.
when the pandemic struck, well, everything changed, and we started to realize that the healthcare industry was so much behind the rest of the industries in terms of adoption and use of technology. And this is maybe why the pandemic was a pandemic, because the systems were not prepared to share information, data, so it arrived late, and it was already, late. So in the year 2020, we started thinking out how we could um, scale our solution to other countries. Not because at the moment we were only in Argentina, working in Argentina. It was a hybrid company with physical locations and using technology, but it wasn't a real 100% tech company. So in 2020, we started saying, okay, we know all of this about how to um, help women arrive to a diagnosis in time. How can we extrapolate what we know? How can we, scale this solution? And we started developing our own platform. The name of the platform is Boulder. Um, and the platform does the same thing we were doing with physical locations, but instead of opening physical locations as we did it before 2021, we just get connected to existing clinics and hospitals. We give them the same solution we would do ourselves, right? So the good thing, it's a solution is, I always say, was developed bottom up, meaning that we got the experience, we were in the trenches, we know exactly what's going on at clinics and hospitals, and the problems and pains they have in order to deliver high quality healthcare. So we are now doing this by using our own platform. This platform gets connected to any mammography installed in a clinic or a hospital. We then give them access to a network of medical doctors specializing on breast imaging diagnosis that are also assisted by artificial intelligence in order to do interpretation of the mammograms. Once we identify women at risk of developing breast cancer, we start following them at every step of the patient journey until they get to a treatment on time.
Wow. Wow. So this is a lot of
A
a
lot
lot
of
of sides
information.
to the to the business here in terms of connecting people. How do you stand back right now and approach, let's put this in place first and then this will happen. So like how do you kind of walk before you run in a pretty big effort, right? That you're trying to tackle right now. Just kind of walk me through kind of your thought patterns on establishing a good foundation.
Well, actually, I mean, if we're speaking about how this company evolved, and I would say before just, and this is a common mistake that I see in other companies, startups. They kind of think they already know the pains, and they develop a solution that they believe is going to solve someone else's pain, right?
Right, right.
For us, it was the opposite, and this is what when I said it was bottom up, the development of the technology was we first felt those pains, went through those pains, we had to respond to those pains maybe manually before our Boulder platforms existed, and we once we knew that and we did it ourselves, we then develop our technology in order to address those pains and make the process much more efficient and effective.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think has been the biggest evolution from maybe 11 years to now? Is it what you've done, or is it how technology has been changing, which has allowed the ideas to maybe grow? Like where do you see the biggest evolution happening?
Yeah, I would say it was a combination. of course, we accumulate so much knowledge and experience, and this is, of course, a game changer. Uh, at the same time, technology was evolving. Uh,
Yeah.
I have to also say that even the pandemic was, I know it was bad, but it was good for the healthcare system, meaning that we, the healthcare system in general, they realized that they needed to adopt technology, use technology, start, analyzing data. You would never get data before 2020 about breast cancer in general. It's crazy that it was like that. I mean, there were numbers, but it wasn't really accurate. We are
Hmm.
now, we all at least know now that data is crucial, that you have
Yeah.
to do it. You have to have that data in order to improve what you are doing. Um, and so it was a combination of different forces, I would say. It was our experience and knowledge, what was going on, the moment of in the pandemic, the technology evolving, and the healthcare system in general accepting that they needed to use that data in order to perform much better and to democratize access to high quality medical services.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about maybe team members. Like what does your team look like? Like I got to assume a little bit it's not just you by yourself in this whole
No.
endeavor. Like so what does it look like in terms of kind of structure and how you put a team together and who does what and also maybe identifying internally what maybe a weakness is that hey, I want to make sure I have a marketing person or whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
however, like how do you sort of navigate that for the company? And again, how do you keep that ball forward when it comes to team members?
Yeah, well, for us it was also a painful development, meaning painful. I would say I would use that word because we were a hybrid solution before 2020, and in order to become a health tech 100% tech solution, you need to completely shift your mindset. It's a
Hmm.
even if the solution looks similar, you have to completely shift your mindset. You have to think in another way, and you have to think global, and you have to think about scaling fast. This is what we are doing now. So it was really hard for us to make that adaptation to being 100% tech company. We don't own medical centers anymore, and this is a huge difference.
Hmm.
So this is one thing. Yet, of course, that is related to hiring people with different skills and who may have the ability of thinking more global. And in terms of scalability, before 2020, we were only operating in Argentina. We are now operating in Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Spain, Costa Rica, and we are thinking global. Even we are also thinking about Middle East at this moment, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
in that regard, it was a huge difference. The other thing is that we right now we are about 40 people in the team in the different countries. Of course, some of them, Mexico and Argentina, concentrate around 70% of the team. The rest is just a few people in the rest of the countries. Um, but then there is another thing that is going on, and this is why the landscape is changing so fast, and it's AI, right? AI in 2022, ChatGPT appeared, and
Mhm.
everything started changing. And the other day, a couple of months ago, I listened to Sam Altman saying, "In the future, you're gonna find multi-billion dollar companies that are run by just one person."
Mhm. Mhm.
And I do believe that. And I believe that up until now, when you would maybe interview entrepreneur, you would ask, okay, how many people are you? And we would probably say, we are 3,000 people, we are
Right.
4,000 people. But in the future, I'm sure that we're going to say less is better. Like, no, we are 10 people, we are 5 people. I don't know. The other day I was watching Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, in an interview with Tucker Carlson, And he said, we are 22. And Tucker
Wow.
Carlson was like, what do you mean 22? X is like 3,000. What do you mean you're 22? We are 22. We use technology, but we're just
Yeah.
22 people in the
Yep.
team. So,
Yeah,
and
I hear you, man. My team has gotten smaller and stronger because it's like every single
exactly,
member is
exactly.
a phenomenal copywriter now. Like
Yeah, exactly.
every one of us are, and it's funny how much like I have a buddy who's got he's a mentor of mine and he's got a very successful business and he's just blown away on like what I'm doing with like 10 people and he has 100 people, right? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
am tripling my content. My content's even better. It is always on point. We never spell anything wrong. It's crazy. It
Yeah.
is wild. Let's talk about those regions for just a moment. Were those regions that you just mentioned a second ago strategic? Was it, like, hey, we want to be here because we're seeing that it's an underservice, or was it a little bit of like, this is, where we just can go right now with just limitations or whatever it might be? But how did you kind of think about regions for to start with?
No, we started focusing on the regions since it's a social impact company. We started, looking into regions that had the bigger problem. Like for example, 80% of the breast cancers that are diagnosed in low and middle income countries arrive at the diagnosis at the late
Mm.
stage.
Wow.
So the huge problem is there. Even though breast cancer is the number one cancer in the world, even in the rich countries, but it's much more curable because people are arriving to a diagnosis earlier than in the poorest countries.
Yeah.
So we started focusing where it was more needed, where the problem was much more difficult, and we have this belief that if we can solve this in low and middle income countries, it would be much more easy for us to then go to a rich country where it's less of a problem to
Mm.
get to an early diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about just in terms of ensuring and educating people as maybe they're coming from a poor region or an underserviced region. What are they typically walking into? Is this something that feels incredibly foreign to them, like they're just not at all sure, just like it feels like again a pretty heavy lift around education, why we're asking you to do this, trust. It seems like there's a lot of factors in there. So as you're exploring this and you're starting to get people to start utilizing, how are you building out again that sort of mindset to get potential patients through the door to catch breast cancer earlier and earlier? So how are you handling that with the team?
Yeah, actually, what we are doing is we understand that it's not just one single organization that's gonna defeat breast cancer by itself. So we
Hmm.
need to articulate our work with other organizations, governmental, private companies, NGOs, whatever it's on site. So we partner with them. We build a strong partnership with different organizations. So they help us do these awareness campaigns that we run, so women would know that they have to go. We even push for legislations in the past. So we
Hmm.
were kind of all over the place, doing many things in order to um, break down all the barriers that were separating patients from having access to early diagnosis. And we also try to do it in a way to deliver our services in a way that is easy for them to understand. Just to
Right.
give you an easy example is if they're using, let's say, SMS, I mean, text or WhatsApp, we don't develop an app in order to give them the services because we know it's going to take much more effort for them. They might never use it. So we use the regular channels they are already using for other things, maybe working, maybe studying, maybe doing whatever they're doing. We just, accommodate our solution to the existing means they are already using.
Mm. That Well, I was wondering about this a second ago, and I'm wondering what your answer is going to be on this. Here in the states, obviously we have HIPAA laws, and I've got 14 different login apps to get to the doctors, the dentist, the stuff. So when you were just mentioning that, let's just say something happens and you're sending it through a Telegram or a WhatsApp or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How are there HIPAA laws like what we're discussing here in the states in these regions, or is it something where you're like, I need to get regulations to change that so that I can do what you're describing, which I agree with you. Nobody wants. I do not need another login and password for
Yeah.
another, for another doctor, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I can totally see that being a barrier. So how do you navigate that then in this space?
Can you be more specific in
Yeah,
your
so,
question?
like in terms of how to communicate and work through laws, right? So here
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
States, you can't send something in Facebook Messenger from my doctor's office to me, right? But like, so, but in this space, how do you get around sending something maybe potentially through WhatsApp, but it's medical, right? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, first you use, you have to anonymize data,
Mm,
so it doesn't there's no names in the data you are sharing, and
mm,
of course, depending on the country you are operating, you have to do it in different ways, but or they have maybe to sign a consented agreement before you start the process of communicating with them.
mm.
But usually, what it all comes down to anonymizing data. Once you anonymize data, then starting from there, you can communicate much easier and with less risk of potentially breaking the law.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine medical data is gold for some companies out there, right? Like to grab that data,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Now that is something that we have to make sure we comply, because we've got some investors, big companies that are investors in Mamotest, big multinationals, some American
Mhm.
companies. So they, even them, even if they, for them it would be very valuable. They have to comply in the
Yeah.
US, so they would be the first to send us to through due diligence processes in order to make sure we are not breaking any law, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about you mentioned a minute ago too, maybe partnerships or advocates that are helping kind of spread what you do to different regions and stuff. How do you facilitate those? What types of partnerships do you look for? So again, let's just theoretically say somebody's listening and they're like, "Man, this would be an interesting partnership for us." How do you just start that process to find partners that make sense for what you do?
Well, since Mammoth is an end-to-end solution, meaning that we go from the very beginning of a patient journey, which is awareness, education, so
Mhm.
people will know they have to go and check themselves. Then we go to the medical part, which is diagnosis and interpretation of images, and we handle a lot of um, crucial and important data. Um, and then we give them different solutions. Once they are diagnosed, we offer them different solutions in the market for them to take care of themselves, meaning different treatments, wherever it's available, geographically and economically for the person we are speaking with. So in the different parts, we need to partner with different organizations. Just to give you examples, in some countries, we partner with governments, local governments. Usually it's
Mm.
local governments because they are much more focused on helping their own population rather than at the national levels that sometimes
Yeah.
they don't have enough
Mhm.
depth in order to go and work on awareness campaigns. So we go with local governments, NGOs. They are always trying to be part of the process and to help us in this kind of work. Just to give you an example of a cultural thing that it's important when you are working in different countries is we even partner with the Catholic Church in,
Mm.
in, in in one of the countries. Why? Because the country was so religious, it was so Catholic that if the Catholic Church is telling people that they have to check themselves, telling women, so they would do it much much more than if we do it ourselves, you
Right,
know?
right. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just to give you an example of the different the variety of the organizations we are working with. Then we partner also with big hospitals and clinic chains that usually have a wide geographical reach in the different countries. In just another example that is not very typical, but in Mexico, for example, pharmacy chains, they work as substitute of primary care centers in Mexico, in the country, right? If you
Okay.
got a pain, the first thing you do in Mexico, you visit a pharmacy, and they will have a medical doctor in the pharmacy, and they might prescribe you whatever,
Mm.
ibuprofen, just to give you an
Yeah, yeah.
example.
Right.
So we partner with them in Mexico, so they would prescribe for women 4 years old or older. You have to go and do your mammogram checkup yearly. So they help us, bring women into the system. And this is like that, depending on the part of the patient journey. We partner with different stakeholders. We try to partner with as many stakeholders as we can, because we understand that it has to be a great alignment of interest for every stakeholder, so we make sure women can navigate this journey easily.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Do you have any like feedback or any testimonials or stories about patients that have really been um, meaningful or kind of shed some highlights on, wow,
Yeah,
like what we're doing really is
yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we do have that, and we had it in different places since the very beginning, not just since we are a tech company, but before that.
Mhm.
I mean, I got, in some places I got women coming to me saying, "Thanks God, Mamotest exists, because of Mamotest, I learned that I have breast cancer. I was an early stage, so I could save my life and be with my family, and I'm still here." And I got people, women sending me WhatsApp from time to time, like, "Thanks for still being here in our community and doing the work you're doing. Thank you very much. God bless you," things like that. So it's really, every time I tell these stories, like goosebumps. It's like,
Yeah. Great.
uh,
Well, I think that's always the added bonus around like of any startup when you actually see whatever you're doing having real impact,
totally.
as opposed to maybe just being like, hey, we're another, this is no offense to anybody doing it, but like we're another crypto thing, right? And it's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, maybe, but like anytime that you have these, real stories that just impact people, yes, everybody wants money and you want to be profitable, but these are the other little wins that I come from
totally.
the crowdfunding space. I raise money for people. So whenever I have a company that's like out there doing it, you're like, hey, like I helped you.
I get
Yay.
it, exactly. Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes you really proud, to know that someone has a better life because of the
Yeah.
work you're doing. It's not just money. Of course, money is important. It has to be profitable, but that that
Yeah.
that are
It really does help startups. It helps your team. It helps. It just, I always try to find, man, whatever you're doing, try to have something where there's some other rewarding things happen. Because otherwise,
exactly.
you can go look at the bank account and be like, oh my gosh, we never have enough money, right? Which nobody ever
Exactly.
has enough, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about just maybe like innovations and technology and the process you guys go through to stay up to speed on that, to keep developing, to keep trying new. I mean, again, it's lots of moving parts in tech in general, and it's moving really fast. So how do you guys take time to make sure you're staying up on it, having the latest greatest maybe, or bringing it to market? How do you guys navigate that?
Yeah, well, first of all, it gets you anxious, right? It's something that even, yeah, I can pretend, no, it's okay, I'm cool with that, and I'm just, but that's not true. It wouldn't be true. It's something that it's always you have to, there's so much information, so many things that you read as it's already happening, but it's not happening yet. It's maybe a pilot. It's maybe they're trying something out. So there are so many solutions and new in healthcare, especially there are so many new ways of diagnosing different diseases, but not all of them are successful. Not all of them are approved yet from a medical standpoint. So there's so much information. It's too much information at this time. Uh, so I would say I navigated somehow with a mix of this anxiety and trying to cool down and okay, not everything that you read it's true or
Yeah.
it's already happening. It's maybe
Yep.
a wish. It may be something that still needs many years to be developed.
Yeah.
So this is how we navigate these times. I also have to say that sometimes I say it as a joke with my teammates. It's like okay, every day I'm just looking for the new article that's gonna say that we are out of business because there is a way of diagnosing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like, but I imagine that this is for everyone. It's the same. I mean, the only way you cannot be uncertain and anxious all these times is if you don't care about anything or you don't know what's going on, right?
Right. You know, I I guess just maybe a follow up to this. I was just wondering this out loud here because you see this so often where a company like an Apple or an Amazon just literally comes in and just kind of does what you do on a iPhone somehow. Well, I don't even know whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you just have to buy a watch and do this, and you're good to go, right? Like you know. Do you fear stuff like that? Do you want stuff like that because it raises the awareness of the whole big picture? I've never made anything in the medical, personally. I've done a lot of other startups, but I've
Yeah.
never personally been in this. So, like, is that a fear that you have in today's world, or is it actually I encourage it? I want as much noise on the space as possible, and then just have trust that you'll find your expertise in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, since we converted Mamotest into a health tech startup, into a platform that
Yeah.
it's, in the entire patient journey, we were betting on that. We were betting on that maybe in a few months, Apple would come with a watch and say, hey, you don't need to go for a mammogram now. You can use your phone or whatever,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Just to say something out there.
Yeah.
But the thing is that people will still need support for navigating that complex system
Hmm.
that is the healthcare system. So I wanted to position Mamotest and our platform Boulder in a place where we would, as I said before, make alliance partnerships with different technologies in different parts of the patient journey to make sure that patients, women in this case, would navigate the entire path with no problems and very efficiently. So, if in the future there are many technologies, let's say Apple VR, Watch, whatever, in different parts of the patient journey, I, I would always have one more thing to do in order to connect all those dots, right? In
Yeah.
that complex patient journey. So this is where I position Mamotest, where I position our solution as a platform. Of course, in 20 years from now, maybe you can do everything in the headset, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
not for now.
Right, right. That's funny. What's keeping you up right now at night? Like, what's the biggest kind of anxiety driven thing that's guiding you?
Well, I'm obsessed with high quality. I'm not just obsessed with growing the company, growing revenue, so investors are happy about it. But I'm obsessed with delivering high quality medical services, and I'm obsessed with democratizing high quality medical services.
Mm-hmm.
whenever I have the possibility, when I go to these, medical conventions and people are speaking, even governments or sometimes other startups saying, no, we are democratizing access to blah, blah, whatever. I
Yeah.
say, yeah, but we have to focus on democratizing access to high quality because of technology. We do have the opportunity to democratize high quality. So we have to focus on that, not just keep some how a solution and okay, at least you have a solution. No, it has to be high quality, and this is what keeps me up at night. Thinking about everything that it's separating our solution from being high quality at every
Right.
step of the solution. Of course, we're working on that. I wouldn't say no, we are already high quality in every step of our solution,
Mhm.
but in many of them we are. In others, we are working on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. How about in terms of like the one of the latest wins that you've had as a company that has just kind of pushed you guys forward? What's been one of the best wins you've had recently?
Like tailwind or
Yeah,
headwind.
yeah, like what, like a win. Just like, man, this was just a great thing. We
Ah,
want to do
win.
more. Yeah.
Okay, win. Okay. Well, actually, entering Brazil for us was a huge win.
Yeah.
You maybe because you are in the US, you know this, but in Latin America, there is Brazil, and then there is the rest of Latin America. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I've got a healthy
Even
amount of
if
from Brazil. You know,
even if it's supposed to be just one market, it's two markets, I would say. So we've been in Latin America for a while now, but we couldn't enter Brazil. There weren't opportunities, and suddenly, well, it wasn't suddenly. We were working on that for 1 year and a half, and we managed to partner with the biggest healthcare system in Brazil, which is Unimed. They are we are implementing a pilot for them to start using our algorithm for assisting medical doctors at interpretation of mammograms. So for us, it was a huge win. We got into Brazil and through one of the biggest doors, and it's a complete different market, and we are really happy about it. For us, it was a really great momentum, I would say.
mm, that's awesome. When you enter a market like Brazil, how do you still focus on quality control? I know Brazil is a big market, right? There's a it's just big, right? You know, I always find this too when other companies like it's like here in the states when you have a product and you're selling it online and all of a sudden you get into Walmart, right? And you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like
Oh
it's
my
just
god.
we did not prepare ourselves for that. So I don't know
Yeah.
what the equivalent of that is in your space, but like getting into that, like where do a little edit job. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
got my question, but just to make it
Yeah. Yeah. I
just
got it.
like, what are the pitfalls on it that could exist?
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest, this is the first time we enter a market such as Brazil.
Mm,
The previous markets were smaller than Brazil. Brazil is a huge market, the economy number 8 in the world.
mhm,
Um, Even a different language from the countries we are operating. We are operating in all Spanish speaking countries, and now it's Portuguese.
mm.
There is no much difference, but still a difference.
Yeah,
Um, so for us, of course, high quality it's even more important than in other countries because it's such a big country. We are right now in the process of implementing the first pilot, and we are, taking care of those things that we have to take care in order to keep our high quality also in Brazil. I will tell you about it next year when we have our
good.
next podcast, but
Yeah.
it's looking good so far. But it's something that it's also keeping me up at night, of course.
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
it's
Well,
like entering Walmart, as you said.
yeah,
It's like
I would
whoa.
imagine, yeah, it's just massive,
It's
yeah.
a happy problem anyway, right?
Yeah,
It's
oh,
it's a
yeah,
good.
it's always a happy problem, but it is a new problem that you have to
Yes.
really navigate and understand what you're getting into. Well, as
Yeah.
we kind of wrap up, like how, what would you want listeners to kind of take away what is kind of involvement if they're listening to this wherever they are, like what does that look like? What is a call to action for people to do right now?
Well, the call to action, it's always, I mean, we've got this great solution that we are developing. We've got great experience in order to defeat breast cancer as we know it, at least, to democratize access to early diagnosis of breast cancer, which is, that's a huge win because if you have early diagnosis, 98% of women would save their lives. So, what I would say is we've already got the solution. If you are somehow related to the healthcare market or you think that this could be a huge difference where you live, just contact us. We'll have, since it's a modular solution, we don't have to implement the entire solution in every place we go. It's a modular solution. We can start with different parts of the solution and then start implementing the rest of the parts. So this is something we did it on purpose in order to get into different countries as fast as we could, and then start completing the solution, right? So just if you care about breast cancer, which is the number one cancer in the world, just contact us. We are ready to help and to defeat breast cancer wherever we find it.
That's cool. That's cool. Where can people go to learn more? Where should we send people?
Sure.
Website, social. Where should they go?
Mamotest.com. It's our website. We also You can also find us in LinkedIn. This is Red Mamotest, and also Instagram.
Okay. Great. Well, I'll make sure I'll have all the links in the show notes. So if you guys are interested and you want to learn more, we'll have all the show notes in there. I encourage everybody to go check it out. So we end every podcast with some questions that have nothing to do with what we just talked about. We do this every single time. So now we're going to do a hard pivot. All right. So we're going to pivot over to what are you watching on TV right now, or any movie you've watched? What have you watched recently that you liked?
Recently that I liked was I don't remember the name of this one. The one about it was the last name of the guy who was working on the atomic bomb. Um,
Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
liked it. I liked
Yep.
it a lot. And
That was a
I find
that was
some.
a marathon. You
What?
gotta really sit down for that one, right? Wasn't it like 3 and a half?
Yeah, I was in an airplane. I was in an airplane.
Yeah.
So
That's,
it was a long flight and I could watch it.
yeah.
And I found some resemblance with what is going on with AI at the moment.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
might have to rewatch it with that in mind. I don't think I was really thinking AI when I watched it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How about books? Are you reading any books right now?
Right now, yes, the Elon Musk
Okay.
by Walter Isaacson. Yeah,
Nice.
I,
Nice.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Cool. Very cool. How
Yeah.
about podcasts? Do you listen to any podcasts?
Right now, no, I'm not listening to any. I'm gonna listen to this one.
Well, obviously this one. I mean, everybody listens to this one. The millions and millions of listeners listen to this one. Yeah, you can be million number one. How about like where do you go on the internet to like find something? Like where do you dive in for news, information? Just where do you
Yeah,
consume?
yeah. Usually X.
Okay.
People I follow on X.
Yep.
This is where I try to, consume that kind of information because if not, there is so much information on the web. So I regularly use X for information and data, and of course I'm specialized
Hmm.
webs for healthcare, um, and then of course I'm using ChatGPT all the
Yeah.
time in order
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to know everything.
Yeah. It is a powerful. Yeah. I've right
Yeah,
now. I've been going between that and Claude. I do that
yeah.
constantly.
Oh, okay. How do you find them? Or which
They're
one would you
definitely
say?
different. I honestly, I almost treat them as two different employees in terms of like task
Okay.
and like, hey, this tone is a little bit different over here. And then there's some tasks that like I've got some custom chat GPTs that I built that are they're really good. They're built off my
Yeah,
data and they're just better than this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all of it's fascinating right now, man. I am just like
It
it's like the
is.
Wild West.
It
How
is.
about
It
how
is.
about uh, how about music? Any music you listen to lately?
Well, I like Brazilian music now
Okay.
lately, especially Brazilian jazz.
Yeah,
It's to chill out a little bit, to calm down, to wind down. It's good.
that's awesome. Well, I
Makes me
appreciate.
think of being at the beach.
Sure, I bet. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
vibe. Yeah, that's a good vibe too. Yeah, we'll have a little
yeah,
beach on my end over
yeah,
here with the
yeah.
holidays. Well, awesome. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're busy. You know you're in the middle of it. This was a great conversation, and I just encourage everybody out there. We've probably all got women in our lives. I'm assuming this is something that everybody should be, thinking about, and we're all impacted somewhere somehow by it. I know we've had it in my family, breast cancer. So there's always something to be happening here, and I think it's great what you're working on, and it's going to impact lots and lots of people. So keep going, keep knocking it
Thank you
out.
very much, Jeff. Thank you very much. Thank you for interviewing me, and thanks a lot for sharing entrepreneurs' stories around the world.
That's what we do here. We appreciate it. All right, thanks so much for your time.
Bye bye.